Hey, Acers. Yeah, it happened. I think it happened last week, but yeah, I definitely have trimmed up my beard. And this time you can see it better because I'm wearing a not a dark shirt. Anyway, um, I am coming to you. This is, well, actually, let me officially introduce the channel. Welcome to the ACE Roleplaying Games channel. I am your host, Mason Emerson. ACE stands for Achieve, Create, and Entertain, and here we're gaming for good. So now that the introductory piece is out of the way, I wanted to thank you all for joining me today. I this week, um, once again, we had so many teens come to our Tuesday night teen gaming that we had to split the table again, and that's a good problem to have. The only downside is I probably won't be able to run for the grown up table anymore, at least not until we get another teen GM trained up, and that's fine. I'm absolutely fine with that. However, one of the side notes is that one of the new teens that came might want to run Dungeons and Dragons, and hey, if he wants to run Dungeons and Dragons, I am all for it. Dungeons and Dragons is a great game. I have no problems with any game that helps you to find a way to have fun. So, you know, you get a second here. Okay, second's over. And you didn't even notice any time passed. Haha. Magics of video, folks. Anyway, no, at Ace Role Playing Games, we embrace all role playing games that are wholesome and that teach you to be good people. So, chances are we might not be playing Shadow of the Demon Lord here, but there's the Shadow of the Weird Wizard that's coming out soon. And that one might be fun. A little bit more PG-13, because we keep things PG-13 or less here because we realize that we have people from the ages of 12 to 18 as welcome to the club. So, with that said, I took a second table. I took just three young men that I just grabbed them and said, you, and you, let's go. And we went over, and Mythos, just to let you guys know, and this is, again, no paid sponsorships here. I don't get them. Mythos Games, though, they have, what's it called? Mythos Games has a rental room, a tower room is what it's called. And it looks like the inside of a stone castle tower, which would be really cool. And it's even got some fun posters up. It is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant and wonderful. You can fit up to like 3 or 4 tables in there. I mean, that's where they have the women's and other people D&D night every Thursday night, and that's great. I embrace them having that. That's awesome. And as you get older and as you get to a point where you're more mature in your gaming, you'll be invited to join those women's and other people's groups and stuff, and you'll be invited to join grown-up groups in general, and it's just so much fun. Now, there's all sorts of things that went on with the other table, and they were finishing up a campaign. So Ben, the new guy, he didn't even have a chance to he didn't even have a chance to finish creating his character before he got pulled off into the other table. And I took him in, and we played Trailer Park Shark Attack. And we didn't even get that far into the story. It was a bunch of diving down, trying to find gear and stuff by swimming, and then coming back up and fighting more sharks. And that's all it was. And hey, sometimes that's all you need, is just fight after fight after fight. Lots of fun. And that's where we just had us a blast. And yeah, we lost a couple characters. I mean, the point of Trailer Park Shark Attack is if you play the campaign, or you play the one shot or the two shot right, you're going to go through half a stack of characters this thick. And they're all printed on cardstock, and you just keep tossing them. However, I had one kid who was so funny because he was just jumping on it, and he played a Trailer Park Santa. So he took off, he stripped down to his wife beater and his Christmas boxers, and he took his Santa suit pants and he wrapped them around the mouth of a great white shark and rode that thing. It was awesome. I mean, I gave him a -6 to be able to pull this off, and he did it. And that's the great thing about Savage Worlds is that swinginess of it. You can do some incredible gonzo things, and when you're playing Savage Worlds, it's very cinematic. That's the whole point, is that it's supposed to be a cinematic RPG. And if cinema is not what you want to play, there are other games out there you can play. If you want to learn how to pick it up and run it as soon as possible, Savage Worlds is your game. So that made me think of that makes me think of this week when I had one of my guys, Ethan, over, and shout out to him. He's a good guy. He's the one who's actually going to take over running the table, and he's going to be running Sprawl Runners, which is basically the Savage Worlds Savage Worlds version of Cyberpunk. And if you want it to be Shadowrun, it can be that too. So, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's hitting me, but anyway, I'm just tired. I guess life is tired when you get old. So enjoy being young and energetic while you can. Anyway, so Ethan came over, and I realized that the first thing I really need to teach you guys is the most basic thing of Savage Worlds. The rest of the stuff, the character creation and stuff, we'll get back to that. But this is the Savage Worlds basic. You need to know how to do this, and if you know how to do this, and you can give an engaging hook. So I'll touch on hooks in the next video. I'm going to actually write that note down. I'm almost out of this rocket book. I'm going to have to do some photographing and things like that, and then erase it. But anyway, so today's video is going to be combat. And that will give you enough of the basics to be able to run anything. And then hook is next time. And then after combat and hook, we'll talk about developing the story. So, and really in a lot of ways, and then we'll plan them from there as we get into the hook. I'll plan the next one after developing the story. But anyway, the point of any role-playing game is, in most cases, combat. And that's the truth of it. We get in these things to play a game where we're punching at someone. And it goes back to the roots of role-playing gaming. The Dungeons and Dragons goes back to Chainmail, which was a miniatures combat game. And you can actually find sets online that on eBay that are like the white box set is what they call part of it. I mean, I might even be misinformed on some of it, but the idea is that you have the stuff from 1974 that was Dungeons and Dragons, the first 3 books, and then you can add in other books from there. And there's a Eldritch summoning, or there's an Eldritch guide of some sort. And I would warn you, probably don't get that until you're out of ACE, because parents might not be comfortable with that one. So I will warn you when I think there's a parent warning on any of the stuff that we do. Like there is a setting called The Curious, or not a setting, but a one shot, or yeah, it's usually a one shot, but it's called The Curious Death of Violet Evans. And it's written by my friend Tracy Sizemore. She's amazing. I highly recommend her stuff. She's written Curious Death of Violet Evans. She wrote Teen Crush, which I'm currently actually in the process of retooling it a little bit for the new Superpowers companion. And I'm also working on coming up with male counterparts to the all-female cast of the 5 superheroines that are in there. Because sometimes if I'm going to play this at a convention or at in a one-shot situation, which I will be doing this coming Tuesday, kind of want to have, if boys kind of want to play boys a lot of times, and that's okay. And it's okay if boys want to play girls, and it's okay if girls want to play boys, and it's okay if girls want to play girls. It's okay. You're playing a character in a story. I mean, the character of the 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 character of Gabriel in Constantine with Keanu Reeves, that was played by a woman. So it doesn't matter when you play something. It's not saying what you are or aren't. What you're playing is a character who fits in the story, and you're playing them. Like, I mean, think about Jumanji. You guys like Jumanji? Or at least a lot of teens do. That one girl gets turned into a boy, and it was okay. And and there's all sorts of things like that, and that's okay. But make sure you're talking to your parents about it. Make sure you're telling them what's going on. Tell them how exciting the stories become, because having your parents support you as you find your hobby, find your passion, is an important thing. And this is something that I feel from my heart, because in a lot of ways, my parents didn't support me in this. They put up with me doing it, but they didn't support me in it. And that's one of the things I'm changing for you guys. I want your parents to support you. I want your parents to at least understand enough of what you're doing here that you can definitely go to your parents and say, Mom and Dad, I know you probably don't even want to learn how to run this, but hey, who knows? They might. They might. You could show them Savage Worlds and say it's really easy to learn. And let me tell you about the combat system, which we'll get to in just a minute. But the thing is that when you get when you tell your parents about the combat system and how easy it is, then you definitely might get them to play with you, and that would be fun. It could be a fun family activity you could do, which is something we do. My kids and I have it set up so basically anytime I could throw down with them, really, and I'd love to do it more often because hey, I'm a dad. That's what I do. Anyway, let's talk about combat in Savage Worlds, and that is really, we're kind of gonna do Savage Worlds a little bit out of order now, because I've read the first little bits to you. We've talked about character creation a bit. We talked about hindrances. We talked about things like that. But really, what you want to do first is you want to learn how to just run the combat. And there's the game mastering section is in chapter 7. And that is on page 193. So I'm going to just quote here from it. And this is from the Savage Worlds core rulebook. Main contributors being Shane Hensley, who created it, and Clint Black, who's awesome. He's the one who suggested that we call we call the overall Salt Lake City group Junkyard Savages when we get there, because of the junkyard being the leftovers of Hellstrom's Industries in Deadlands, Hell on Earth. So Junkyard Savages is going to be pretty cool. Anyway, so it just says here, learning the rules. Don't be intimidated by all the rules in Savage Worlds. They're meant to handle most everything under the sun, but all you need to start is how to resolve trait rolls in basic combat. So that's it, right there. Trait rolls in basic combat. Everything else in this book, from all of those chase maneuvers to interludes and situational rules, can be ignored until you need them. A great way to learn the core rules is to run a simple fight on your own first. Put a wildcard fighter and 3 skeletons on the table in front of you and have at it. Your only goal is to get a feel for rolling the dice, figuring totals from aces and modifiers, rolling and applying damage, and soaking wounds. So, I can't particularly show you a table and be all cool like that. But what I would recommend is, first of all, let's look at a fighter. So there's a listing in here for soldier. soldier works like this. They have an agility of D6, smarts of D4, so they're not too bright, spirit of D6, strength of D6, vigor of D6, and an athletics of D6, common knowledge of D6, fighting of D6, intimidation of D6, notice of D6, persuasion of D6, shooting of D6, and stealth of D4. Their pace is 6, their parry is 5, and their toughness is 5. Okay, that's pretty good for when you want just a mook to throw into the battle. But your players are going to be playing wild cards. So we're going to upgrade this guy to a wild card. And the thing is that Savage Worlds is one of the most beautiful systems in the world for me, because it is so easy when your players need to encounter a soldier, for example, to just grab one of these guys and plug them in. But what if they want to encounter a merchantman? Well, all you do is, and this is so simple, this is the simplest way to create non-player characters really quick. And that's a D6 and everything. And then you give them a D8 and what they're good at. So if it's a merchant, they'd have a D6 and all the stats and have an extra D8 in persuasion. And that's it. That's all you need. And you can play that character. You can give them a bit of a characteristic if you want. If they're going to be someone who's going to stick around for a while, then you can go ahead and give them a name and add in, just you adjust it as you need to. If you need to have a merchantman who's going to bilk his name doesn't matter, but he's going to bilk the company or the team out of all the money that he possibly can, then maybe give him a persuasion of D12. And this is your suave guy. Usually guys something like that at that level, though, A, are wild cards, and B are usually named. But let's explain a term here, because this is probably the first time you might have heard me mention the word wild card. If not, then bear with me if I have explained it before. But basically, a wild card works like this: you make your character in this movie, because I mentioned before, it's cinematic, and in a cinematic movie, your name's in the credits. You're the special person. You're the cool person. And because of it being a cinematic and swingy kind of movie kind of setting, your character needs a little bit of extra chance to succeed. So not only do you roll all of your trait dice, and fighting, which is used for combat, is a trait. And those are your attributes and skills. Not only do you roll all of your trait dice at whatever level you have them, but you also roll an extra D6 for most of your character's career, making them giving them one extra chance. And it's either the main die or the second die. It has to roll a 4 or better. Another rule you need to know before we start fighting our soldier against 3 skeletons. A second rule you need to know is you need to know that dice in Savage Worlds do what's called ACE. And other systems call it exploding dice, and that's the same basic concept. If you roll the highest die number that the die is capable of, and yes, die is singular, dice is plural, 2 or more. So die, dice. Anyway, if you roll the highest number that is possible for that die type, you roll it again and add the new number to the previous one to increase the total. Now, if you keep rolling 4 on a D4, you keep rolling and you keep rolling and you keep rolling and you keep rolling until you're as high up as that die will let you go. And that can be a pretty big number. I've seen a D4 go all the way up into the 40s. So it can be cool. So yes, there's a potential for a basic novice character to one-shot kill because the damage dice also ace. They also explode. But you can one-shot a black dragon. Not likely. More likely he's going to one-shot you, but you could possibly. Anyway, so um yeah, I'm going to pull up the Savage Worlds dice roller on my friend's website. My friend Christian Serrano. I give him a shout out too. He's awesome. He's one of the coolest guys I know, and he's really smart. And he's the one who he's the one who wrote the Eberron conversion for Savage Worlds. So super smart, smarter than me. Anyway, so we're going to pull up his Savage Worlds dice roller. So now that I've got the roller up, I'm going to use that for, and I'll put the link to the roller in the episode notes. Dice roller. Okay, so skeleton. Let's talk this a little bit. They have claws basically because they're bony fingers, and they have a fighting of D6. And these are, of course, your typical, flesh rotted off, and then like a necromancer rose them from the dead or something. Now, first of all, I need to do some sort of initiative. So that's the first step. And to do initiative in Savage Worlds, we use a deck of playing cards. And I showed you these kind of the ones for Holler when I got those. They're even better than these ones. These ones are good though. These ones are I highly recommend these for just a general good deck of cards. This oversized deck. It's $20, but it's worth the money. I've gotten my mileage out of it. And actually, I ended up buying a second deck because at one point one of my cards was damaged, but I can't find it anymore. So maybe it just kind of re-put itself back to right because I left it sitting alone for a long time or something. I don't know. I was getting ready to pull the extra jokers out of here and put those in my other deck, but no, this is perfect now. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Okay. So first of all, as the game master, you're going to deal one card to the wild card players. So in this case, it's King of Spades. So they're the wild cards. Oh, and before the fight starts, the wild card gets some bennies. Wild card will get 3 bennies. At the beginning of every session, they get 3 bennies unless otherwise noted. So if they have bad luck, they only get 2. But if they have good luck, they get 4. In this case, our soldier is just regular. So he only gets 3. And as I'm only technically going up against one wild card, technically as a game master, I only get 1 benny. But to make things more interesting, I'm going to give me a second one. So those are for the skeletons. There's 3 of them and 1 of him. 1 of him has all 3. 3 of them has only access to 2. So let's now draw for the skeletons. And they get a 4 of hearts. So the soldier goes first. Our fighter, our gallant fighter of the realm, maybe not quite a knight yet, but he's got some body armor, so that's going to give him a +4 in his defense. So he sees the 3 skeletons, draws his sword, and he goes marching towards the skeletons. He just goes to the skeletons because he knows that these guys could lead doom to the rest of the party. So he attacks first. Now, I'm going to say that this has happened after he's already closed the distance. Because distance in Savage Worlds, it's very brilliantly thought out. An inch is basically 3 feet or a yard, or no, I'm going to actually give you the official statement because I know that I just realized that I am in error here. So, and that's the other thing is I will admit to you when I'm mistaken, and I am mistaken here. Okay, page 91. So let's get back to page 91. Okay. Which, funny enough, is in combat. Okay, distance. Because the game assumes you are using terrain or a battle mat and standard 28mm miniatures, which are the ones that are about this big, movement and weapon ranges are listed in inches. To translate that to regular distance, 1 inch is equal to 2 yards. So a yard is 3 feet, so it's 6 feet for 1 inch. So going back to our soldier and going back to our soldier versus skeletons. If this were kind of a first round thing, what I would do is I would actually have it so they're both. So the soldier who's actually slower than the skeletons. He's an inch slower. The skeletons have a pace or a movement. They can move without a run die. They can move 7 or 14 inches at a turn if they choose not to do anything else. But the soldier can move 6 or 12 inches in a turn. So the skeletons are slightly faster. So actually, let's go ahead and have that happen. The soldier is too far away to, by himself, to this round, go up and attack unless he runs. So he's going to run. And what that means is, in Savage Worlds, you can have up to 3 actions in a turn. So, but the thing is that multi-actions are covered on page 103. But basically, the first action has a 0 modifier. But if you do 2 actions, each action has a -2 modifier. And if you do 3 actions, each action has a -4 modifier. So running will give you a -2 modifier to your attack, but it does not give you a -2 modifier on the run. So he's going to run. So that means I'm going to turn off the roll wild die check mark, and I'm going to click on the D6, and I rolled a 4. So that means he essentially can run. He can essentially go 10 versus the skeleton 7. So he's going to get up to them this turn, and he's going to attack. And now we're going to give him a fighting of D8. So this time I'm going to check the roll wild die box, and I'm going to roll the D8. And I rolled an 11. So we're going to look at the skeleton statistic block, or stat block. We're going to look at the skeleton stat block, and the skeleton has a parry of 5. So my target number for my soldier of the realm to hit one of these skeletons is, my target number is a 5. Now, normal target numbers in Savage Worlds are a 4. Just standard target number in just about everything that you're going to do. If you're going to do a smarts check to see if they just have at least enough knowledge to understand the basic concept in front of them, the target number would be 4, maybe 5 or 6, depending on the adjustments. But say we're doing an athletics roll. Say we're jumping and trying to jump as far as we can. That jump would be on a D6 for like the skeleton. It would have to jump on a D6, and it would have to get a 4 or better on the D6. And that's standard target number. But in this case, because of the parry being a 5, that means our soldier has to hit a 5 or better. So the toughness is 1 even higher. Or the difficulty, the target number is 1 even higher because the parry becomes the target number in melee combat. So he swings his sword and he hits. Now, if 4 is the target number, 4 above it is another success. And 4 above that, and 4 above that, and 4 above that. So with 5 being the target number, in the parry. I hope I'm not going too fast for you. You can rewind and kind of follow through my logic here. But anyway, with the parry being 5, 4 more, which means a success and a raise, would be. Oh, wait. We got a problem, though. I forgot to subtract 2. So it'll be a 9. So 5 is the target number. 4 more on top of that is 9. And guess what? He got a 9 exactly. So he hits with a raise. And that's because his wild die rolled a 6, and he re-rolled and got a 5. So he charges in, raises the sword up, and comes down on the first skeleton. And he now gets to roll the damage with an extra d6. So the damage on his sword. So let's get back up to the gear section. The damage on his sword is going to be in personal weapons, back on page 72. And he's going to have a longsword, so we're going to have to up his strength to d8 because that's the minimum strength. He's got a longsword. And he comes up and just swings in, and so he's going to roll strength plus d8 damage plus an extra d6 because he raised. So strength is d8. Strength is d8 plus an extra d8 plus an extra d6. So the total is 11. So he did 11 points of damage. Now, skeletons, because they don't have much by way of fleshy parts on them, skeletons can take a bit of damage. They have a toughness of 7. And see, I'm not even back to that entry yet, but I remember that from when I looked at it earlier. Their toughness is 7. So that toughness means that it would be 7 to shake the skeleton. And they're also hardy. A second, I would give these skeletons hardy because that would make sense. Because a second shaken result doesn't result in, I don't know, maybe they're not, because they're just bone. Not even skin and bone. Anyway, so let's just run with this. Their toughness is 7. To get a wound on the skeleton, because they're pretty tough, you'd need 4 over 7, which is 11, which is exactly what I rolled for our knight, for our knight in training, our soldier hero. So he brings his sword down on the first skeleton and smashes right through it, shattering its bones and destroying the magic hold that it has on it. So there are only 2 skeletons left now. But it's now that the king is gone, the next card in order is the 4, and they get to go now. So the skeletons, they both charge at him. Now, they're going to gang up on him, and there is a gang up bonus. Each skeleton standing next to him is going to get a +1 bonus to their attack rolls, and I'm checking to see here. Okay, page 101. Ganging up allows attackers to flank, exploit openings, and generally harass a foe. Each additional adjacent foe who isn't stunned adds +1 to the attacker's fighting rolls, up to a maximum of +4. So to hit him, they're going to have an easier time. And if you think about it, 2 guys coming at me, they're going to have one of them is going to have an easier time hitting me than if it was just 1-on-1. So since it's not 1-on-1, it's 2-on-1, they're both going to get a +1. So the first skeleton, he's just going to, these guys don't have any weapons. They just are going to claw at our hero, who, like I said, going back up to gear, in gear, when we talk about armor, and we're talking medieval armor, he's probably wearing chainmail, which incidentally, historically, was more typically used than a lot of things. So he's got +3 to his toughness from armor. And +3 on his legs, and +3 on his head. So that's how much weight that's the armor that he's wearing. And these guys only have claws. They're not armor-piercing claws, so we don't need to worry about that. Although, if they were armor-piercing claws, say they were armor-piercing 1, that would mean that when they hit, they take 3 away from that, they 1 away from that +3. So it would be only +2. So our soldier whose toughness is 5, he gets a +3, so he's got a toughness of 8. But armor piercing would make that a toughness of +7. So that's the difference. So they're going to attack him. The skeletons are going to attack him, and they're going to claw at him. So the first one attacks. We're going to go back to the trait rolls tab here. I'm going to reset, and I'm going to have them roll fighting, which is a d6, no wild die. The first one, oh, I forgot to put in the +2, but that's okay. Even with a +1, +1 from the fighting, he fails. So the first one rolls a 3. The second one, and our target number, because our target number for this soldier, his parry is 5. So our target number is 5, but he gets a +1. And then the second one attacks and rolls a 6 with a 4 plus the 1 point for having the fellow next to him. So he hits with a raise. So now he gets to do his damage to the soldier. Soldier's got a toughness of 5, but remember, he's got the extra 3 armor. So he's got a toughness of 8. And the strength of the skeleton is a d6, and the claws give him a d4. And that sucker exploded like crazy. I rolled a 4 on the d4 for the extra damage because it's strength plus d4. So you got a 4 on the strength, an extra 4 on the d4, a second 4 on the d4, and then the 3. So for a total of 11 plus 4 is 15. So he gets through the armor. Now, being as our hero is the hero, and he's a wild card. This means that all's not over for him, because being as this is 7 over his 8, so 7 is not quite 2 raises. So that would be if the damage roll had been just an 8, that would have shaken our hero. A 9, 10, 11 would also shake the hero. But a 12, that puts a wound on the hero. And then a 13, 14, 15 is just 1 wound. So he's shaken with a wound. So he's going to spend a Benny, which is American short for benefit. So he's going to spend a Benny. And he is going to make a trait roll of his vigor, which is a d6. So, and his target number is 4. So he rolls the d6, and he gets a success. So that means this skeleton, the second one, clawed at him, and it ripped through the armor and kind of ripped a little bit into his chest a little bit, but it didn't get through. So that's how this resolves. And this is how you as a game master resolve things. Is that you narrate now for your players what they're seeing, hearing, feeling. So you would say to your soldier, you feel as those claws rip through your chainmail and rip into your breast a little bit, but you are wearing gambeson underneath. So you press some on it for a second there, and the blood stops because it was only superficial. And you now don't mind your blood at all as you take your sword and the next round begins. And so we would deal another set of cards. So again, our hero's going first. So that's how a combat goes. And you can message me. I will leave my email address in the show notes below. Message me. Ask me questions. Ask me video questions. Doesn't matter. Just go ahead and ping me. I'll start teaching you how to game master. We'll go through a whole 3-on-1 combat and finish out this skeletons versus soldier. I mean, so far, soldier's doing pretty well, but he's taking a hit, and he's down to 2 bennies now, and the 2 bennies are still there for the skeletons too. So that's how it goes. You play it, and here's the thing: is if you decide to, if you like play that character well, if you tell the game master, I take my sword, I rear back, and that's where you roll. And then you describe what happens as you cleave through or as you bounce off. If you do that, I can guarantee you your game master will give you more bennies, and that'll give you more chances to succeed. However, remember, you can't benny out of a critical failure. So, with that said, my friends, I love you. You're amazing. It's good to have you as part of ACE. Keep watching the videos. Keep learning game mastering tricks from me as best you can. I'm not an authority on game mastering by any means. There are other great game masters out there, and they also keep their content PG-13 or less. And I mean, there's Matt Colville. He's got some great tips. There's How to Be a Great GM. I don't know his name, but he's really good. There's some really great game masters out there. My friends at Savage Interludes, shout out to Ron, Veronica, and Tracy. They just ended their 3-year run, or a little over 3 years, of doing weekly content, or bi-weekly lately. And they're getting back into gaming and getting to do stuff themselves. But Savage Interludes has now come to an end. And we'll take a moment of silence for them. But now that we've had that moment of silence, go back and listen to their back content, their backlog. It's up online. You can listen to their entire show. You can still get it on your podcatcher. Listen to the show. Get it out there. Listen to it, and just, there's a term from science fiction that you guys got to learn, and that is grok. G-R-O-K. Grok. And it was coined by Robert Heinlein. And Robert Heinlein coined the term, and it meant to understand. But not just to understand, but it meant to take something inside of you and make it part of you. Combat and trait rolls are really all you need to understand, all you need to grok in order to run Savage Worlds. The rest of it is all storytelling. As a matter of fact, my buddy Ethan took over the table 2 Tuesdays ago at the grown-up table, and he still was able to run it, even not knowing the combat rules very well. But this week he knows them better, and we did some cyberpunk combat, and I played a cyberpunk character, and it was fun. And I'll admit, I kind of, and I'll get to min-maxing sometime on one of these, because that's something that it comes out of D&D. The idea of put a minimum stat in whatever it is that you don't care about, and put a maximum stat in whatever you do care about, but it can lead to some fun. Especially when your GM puts you in a place where your min-max doesn't work. But anyway, I've gone 45 minutes almost, so I apologize for the length of this video, but I wanted to make sure that you guys knew the basics of how to run a combat. And I love you guys, like I said, and get out there and game for good. Till next time, this is Mason Emerson.